Welcome to today's Explainer. Have you ever just looked at a single day's news cycle and felt, well, a profound sense of whiplash? Because I know I have. One moment you're reading about a devastating tragedy, the next it's a miraculous survival story. And then suddenly, you're looking at a display of absolute human brilliance. Today, we're analyzing a recent, incredibly intense 24-hour news window. We're going to break down the extremes of the human experience that were captured in just one single day of reporting. We'll be looking directly at the facts, the raw numbers, and the first-hand accounts to understand exactly what happened.
Here's a quick rundown of our agenda. We'll start with a deadly commute on Interstate 95, then transition to a race against time in a flooded cave in Laos. From there, we'll look at two fiery space and transit setbacks, follow up with some heart-stopping dramatic close calls, and finally end on a triumphant note at the National Spelling Bee. Let's dive right in.
Section 1. Tragedy on Interstate 95, a deadly commute in Virginia.
In the middle of the night, near Quantico, a commercial bus traveling from New York City down to Charlotte slammed into multiple cars on southbound I-95. The toll here is just devastating. At least five people lost their lives in this middle-of-the-night disaster. And what's even more heartbreaking is that 4 of those fatalities were in just one vehicle, and the victims included a 7-year-old boy. Beyond that tragic loss of life, over 40 people were injured. Dozens were rushed to local hospitals by first responders who literally had to weave through heavy, chaotic traffic just to reach the mangled vehicles.
To really wrap our heads around the sheer terror of this moment, we have to look to the first-hand accounts. Judy, a passenger who was actually sitting right behind the driver, recalled the impact. She said, "When the bus flipped, it flipped me over, threw me up out my seat, and threw me on top of man and glass. It's just a harrowing reminder of how quickly a quiet, routine, overnight commute can turn into absolute chaos."
So the crucial point now is figuring out exactly why this happened. The primary focus of the ongoing investigation right now is that the commercial bus, which was carrying 34 passengers, failed to slow down for an active work zone. Actually, passengers even reported that the driver was, in their own words, flying. The driver himself was injured and hospitalized, and local police have stated they're already looking into possible criminal charges. Furthermore, the Secretary of Transportation confirmed that federal officials are now closely examining the driver's training and licensing.
Moving on to Section 2. Rescue in the Flooded Cave. A race against the monsoon in Laos.
Picture this. For more than a week, a group of local villagers out searching for gold became trapped by sudden floodwaters. To extract just one survivor, the physical demands on the rescue divers are almost impossible to fathom. They have to carefully guide a survivor through an 800-foot winding underground maze. They have to squeeze through pitch-black tunnels that are, at times, less than 2 feet wide. And they have to do all of this while wading through freezing, chest-high floodwater with the survivor crawling on his hands and knees. Thankfully, they did successfully manage to get the first weakened man out alive, immediately wrapping him in a heat blanket and administering oxygen.
But man, the clock is violently ticking for the 4 men who are still trapped inside. In a truly heartbreaking exchange with a rescue diver who managed to bring them some food and water, one of the stranded men actually pleaded with them, asking why they couldn't just swim out right now. He said they are weak, starving, and can't take it anymore. To make matters even worse, their flashlight batteries are dying, and the looming threat of fresh monsoon rains could flood the cave completely at any moment. It's an incredibly tense situation.
All right, Section 3. Setbacks, space, and transit. Fiery failures on the launch pad and the tracks.
Let's compare 2 massive anomalies that happened today. Down in Cape Canaveral, Florida, Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin experienced a pretty catastrophic explosion. During a static fire test, their 320-foot-tall New Glenn rocket incinerated into an enormous mushroom cloud that was visible for dozens of miles. I mean, it's a massive setback for NASA's moon missions and a loss of over $1 billion in infrastructure. But incredibly, 0 injuries, nobody was hurt. Meanwhile, up in New York, 2 Amtrak work trains collided right inside Penn Station, bursting into flames. And this wasn't an uncrewed test out in the open, this was a live transit hub. The crash injured 5 workers and brought nearly all morning rush train traffic in and out of New York City to a grinding halt, leaving commuters absolutely scrambling.
On to Section 4. Dramatic close calls, dangling in Texas, and Denali rescues. Just imagine being trapped 100 feet in the air. Down at the Galveston Island Historic Pleasure Pier in Texas, 8 high school students were riding the Iron Shark roller coaster when it completely malfunctioned. It stopped dead right near the peak of its completely vertical ascent.
And these teenagers didn't just get stuck, they were stranded.
hanging backwards for more than 3 hours in the brutal Texas heat. The entire park had to completely shut down while rescue workers were called in. Knowing that even a small mistake could be catastrophic at that dizzying height, the rescuers used a ladder to painstakingly pull the terrified, but honestly incredibly brave, students out one by one. Thankfully, every single one of them was brought down to safety.
Now, unfortunately, not all close calls end without tragedy. Up in Alaska, on America's tallest mountain, Mount McKinley, an expedition near the Denali Pass ended with 3 climbers dead after a terrible fall into a basin. However, rescue efforts did miraculously manage to bring one hiker down to safety. Meanwhile, in a totally bizarre near-miss pack on the ground, a driver smashed their car completely through the front doors of the Detroit Metro Airport, sending the people inside scrambling for cover. Amazingly, there were no serious injuries. But you want to know what's really crazy about this? It is the exact same airport where another car drove into a terminal just 4 months ago. What are the odds of that?
Finally, Section 5, a spelling bee record, triumph under pressure.
So the Scripps National Spelling Bee started with nearly 300 spellers. I mean, try correctly spelling Philip Potter in front of millions of people. After 9 grueling rounds, only 2 contestants were left standing. They went head-to-head, flawlessly spelling incredibly difficult words like this one, ultimately resulting in a dead tie. The judges literally had no choice but to force a dramatic lightning round spell-off.
32. In a 90-second lightning round spell-off, 14-year-old Shri Parekh from Rancho Cucamonga, California, correctly spelled 32 words. It is a brand new all-time record. And what makes this so incredibly inspiring is Shri's perseverance. He came in 3rd in 2024, missed the bee entirely last year, but he never gave up. He returned this year with absolute laser focus to claim the championship.
And that brings us to the end of today's explainer. But before we go, I want to leave you with this final thought. What does it say about the human condition when profound tragedy, desperate survival, and record-breaking brilliance all happen within the exact same day? It's a pretty stark reminder of how fragile, terrifying, and incredibly remarkable our world is all at once. Thank you so much for diving into the facts with me today. Keep asking questions, keep looking for the structure and the chaos, and I will see you next time.